Once you know these basics and you understand what this whole thing of elasticity is all about, let me now give you the maths behind this whole concept, because remember I initially said that this is basically a mathematical concept. So mathematically, again, you don't have to be afraid of maths. Maths, again, remember, will just allow us to see all of this economic meaning behind this concept of elasticity in a much more simple, organized way. So there is a formula, there's some maths, but by the end, I'll just give you the sort of, the nutshell of what you need to know, which is quite simple. So mathematically, remember, for any product, you can calculate its price elasticity of demand by simply using this formula where you divide the percentage change in quantity demanded of a product by the percentage change in the price of the product. So here in this imaginary example of mobile phones, you see the price has increased from 100 to 140, which means an increase of 40%. Now increase means a plus, so this would be a plus 40% increase or 40% in price, whereas the quantity demanded has decreased by 30% here. So decrease means a negative, so a decrease of 30%. So if you have to calculate the PED of this mobile phone, then all you need to do is you need to divide this percentage change in quantity demanded of minus 30% by the percentage change in price of plus 40%. Now negative divided by a positive will give you an answer that is negative, so the sign is important. Then 30 over 40 I think equals 0.75. So this would be the PED of this mobile phone. You simply apply this formula. Now sometimes you will be required to do these calculations, but those are considered to be simple MCQs. The examiner will tell you the two prices, the change in quantity. You just need to perform this mathematical step of measuring the percentage changes, apply this formula, you will get your answer. But the more interesting and the more important part that you need to know is that you should be able to just look at the value and the sign of this PED, and you should be able to tell whether the demand is elastic, inelastic, and so on and so forth. So what I'll do is I'll explain to you the meaning of the sign of PED first of all, and then how do we interpret the value. Now what I mean by sign and value is that now this is going to be a mathematical lecture of 1 minute over here. So if I write a number like minus 2.3 and then another number such as minus 5.8, then this is the sign of this number, and this numerical thing we say is the absolute value. So absolute value for this thing over here, this is the sign, and this numerical thing is the absolute value. So if you ignore the sign, basically what you are left with, this thing over here, the number, is an absolute value. So as far as price elasticity of demand is concerned, whenever you apply this formula, the answer, first of all, remember, will always be negative. That is, the sign of PED will always be negative. Why? Because you see, if the price of a product increases, that is a plus or a positive sign, then the quantity demanded, it will decrease, because that's a law of demand. Thing is becoming more expensive, consumers will buy less, quantity demanded will decrease. So you will end up dividing opposite signs, which basic math tells you would give you an answer which is negative. Now the other possibility is that instead of increasing, let's say the price decreases, but then the law of demand tells us that, look, if the product is cheaper, the quantity demanded will increase. So you will have a positive sign over here. So again, you will end up dividing two opposite signs. Again, the answer will be negative. So what you need to therefore remember is that the sign of PED will always be negative, and it simply reflects your law of demand. The fact that if price changes in one direction, the quantity will change in the other direction. And then you are supposed to forget about the sign. this is the only thing that you need to know about the sign. Sometimes this will come up as an MCQ. Sometimes the examiner will ask this in an essay question. Why is PED always negative? Define what a PED is, a mathematical way of measuring the responsiveness of quantity to changes in price. Give the formula and explain that you will always end up dividing the opposite sign, so you will get a negative answer that reflects the law of demand. And then the value of PED. What does it tell in terms of economics meaning, and how can it tell us whether the demand is elastic or inelastic or unitary elastic? Now that is all very easy. Now you see, mathematically, if you apply this formula, PED is equal to division of these two numbers, you can get any value over here. You can get any answer. You're dividing two numbers. It can be 0.75, it can be 100, it can be 200, it can be 0.2, and so on and so forth. But what we need to focus on is the key value of PED of equal to 1 first of all. Why? Because you see, you are dividing two numbers to get your PED. That's the formula. When you divide two numbers, the only way the answer can turn out to be equal to 1 is when you are dividing the same number by itself. The numerator and the denominator, if they are the same, then the answer of the division will be equal to 1. Well, in this case, that means that the percentage change in quantity demanded is equal to the percentage change of price, and then you will get PED of is equal to 1, which we now know that if percentage change of quantity is equal to the percentage change of price, we know that the demand is said to be unitary elastic. So PED of equal to 1, therefore remember, tells you demand is unitary elastic. So we can write it here as well. PED is equal to 1. You don't need to know anything else. Demand is unitary elastic. Now let me write the formula of PED over here again. So PED is equal to percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price. Now you see, if this answer turns out to be greater than 1, that is only possible if you divide a larger number by a smaller number, which in this case means that PED will be greater than 1 only if the percentage change in quantity is larger than the percentage change of price, which we said is the elastic case. When percentage change in quantity is larger than the percentage change in price, we said we consider the demand to be responding a lot and therefore be elastic. According to this formula, that would mean the answer would turn out to be greater than 1. And lastly, again, let me write it down. PED is equal to percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price. Now, the only way this answer can turn out to be less than 1 is when you divide a smaller number by a larger number, which means if the percentage change in quantity is less than the percentage change in price, we know demand is inelastic. Now we know the PED's value will be less than 1. So we can write these two over here as well. Elastic demand, PED will be greater than 1. Inelastic demand, PED will be less than 1. And those are the only key values of PED that you need to think of. You don't need to worry about anything else. So in the exam, the sort of values of PED that the examiner will throw at you will revolve around this key value of 1. So he will ask you to interpret the meaning of elasticity of, let's say, minus 0.8 or minus 1.5 or maybe minus 2.3. He won't give you any numbers such as minus 200 or minus 20 and so on and so forth. And the way you think about all of these different elasticities is that, look, first of all, ignore the sign. And then just ask yourselves that 0.8, it's less than 1, so that means demand is inelastic. 1.5, this is greater than 1, this means demand is elastic. Similarly, 2.3, it's greater than 1, demand is elastic. And then you don't need to care about 2.3 is more than 1.5 or so on and so forth. So just think in terms of this simple number line. The absolute value of PED, it can be anything from 0 to infinity, But all we care is that if it is equal to 1, that tells us unitary elastic demand. If it is greater than 1, it tells us elastic responsive demand. If it is less than 1, it tells us inelastic demand. The consumer is not very responsive. And then once you understand all of these things and the maths, and you can see the mathematical meaning through the economic meaning through the maths, also try to train yourself to move from maths. So let me write it down over here. Let me get rid of this thing over here. So I just want to say one last thing in this video. I just want you to make sure that you can move from maths to economics and economics to maths. What do I mean by that? I give you an elasticity of minus 2.3. You should be able to work it out that, look, the value of elasticity is greater than 1. That means elastic demand. That means the consumer is responsive. The quantity demanded will change a lot. So you have moved from maths to economics. Economics to maths would mean I tell you demand is inelastic. Tell me the value, something about the value of this thing. Inelastic demand means the price elasticity of demand, which is calculated as percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. Inelastic demand would imply this answer would turn out to be something less than 1. And then sometimes in the more complicated questions, sort of learn how you can sort of play around with the mathematical formula. So if I tell you PED is equal to minus 2, then this should, just write down the formula of PED. PED is equal to percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price. If I'm telling you this is equal to 2, then sort of, be comfortable playing around, rearranging this thing. Take this percentage change in price over here, and that would tell you that, look, given this information, I can also know that the percentage change in quantity is going to be 2 times the percentage change in price. If I increase the price by, let's say, 10%, quantity, it will change by twice that. Quantity will respond by changing by 20%. So this is the sort of way in which you can have a holistic understanding of this entire topic, which is really what you need to tackle a variety of different MCQs that you get on this thing over here. So next I will explain to you more things that you need to know about PED. We are going to talk about how you can look at the demand curve and tell from that graphically whether the demand is elastic and inelastic. Then we are going to talk about the uses of this concept of elasticity for businesses. And we are also going to talk about the determinants of a product's elasticity. That is, what determines whether a product will have an elastic or inelastic demand. So all of these things covered in the next few videos.